Alright, that one's live. This one's live. Should be good. Well, let's refresh that. Hopefully that goes. Yeah, it should be live. It says live. Recording in progress. I know you guys can see the screen. It's fine. Chat. It's excellent condition so far. Ooh, live. Okay. I don't know what any of that is. Oh no 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 no! Put them on. I don't know what I'm doing. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Damn it. Alright, you're not supposed to see any of this. How do I monitor my live stream? I don't know what I'm doing. Hold on. Alright, whatever. It's fine. No, I don't need to see that. Live streaming. I think I go here. Okay, am I tripping? It's the default. Dude. Help. My thing crashed. I probably should. Okay, it's fine. Alright, we're good. Okay. Streaming API channels. I don't know what is going on. My content. Live streaming. Am I live? Oh my god, please tell me I'm live. Yeah, it says I'm live. Yeah. I should be live. Is it this one? Yep. Alright, we should be good. Alright, that's fine. Alright, so I can. Alright. So, good evening, guys. I've just had a lot of thoughts on my mind. I got this dump. Alright, let me just take this off. That's for another thing I'm working on. If I take this off, is it gonna like pop? I just don't want there to be a loud noise. Hold on, let me turn this on. Hold on, guys. Probably done this. Alright, so it should be safe to disconnect. Here we go. Alright. Give me a second. I'm just gotta get this wire and we'll figure it out. Alright. Okay. What are we gonna talk about tonight? So, pretty much, I don't know, man. So what I want to do was discuss maybe like some theology, some not spirituality, but because like obviously, you know. And the thing is, I don't really want to rehash what I discussed last time. But it's been a couple of days now, and it's still on my mind. Like I can't get it out of my head. Like I mean, I saw the video, and it wasn't really the video that affected me that much, but it's so crazy. I just saw a video and I kind of wanted to react of Theo Vaughn, who is a comedian. He's a really funny guy. I'm a big fan of his. He did a video today, I think. He just posted it actually a couple minutes ago. But where he basically just um he was discussing his thoughts on Theo Vaughn and on Charlie Kirk. And what I don't want to do is I don't want to make it all about Charlie Kirk, but I mean, like I don't want to get notoriety. I don't want to like use this as a jumping off point for me or in any way like that. I don't want that. But at the same time, he was a very influential person personally in my life, and I know in a lot of lives of other people. But and I guess I mean I don't know. It's I really don't want to like go back and talk about it, but it's crazy that and like I said before, it's like and he wasn't a celebrity, he was a public figure, but like you know when people that you don't that have you've never met and I, this death is hitting me like really really hard. And I know it's the same for a lot of people, and I kind of wanted to discuss that a little bit because it's just the he wasn't any public figure. He was just he literally was a great person, I think. From and that goes and it hurts to see like someone like that get killed because that the shooter hold on, what is oh there's a thing. I was like, what is that? Alright, there we go. So where was I lost my train of thought. The shooter didn't just kill Charlie Kirk. In my opinion, I think I said it in the last one. He killed. I think the future. He was gonna run for office. He was gonna be. He had the potential. He had the potential to be a U.S. president. I think, in my opinion. And I think he even mentioned it when. Again, I think we. I don't want to rehash this stuff, but it's been on my mind a lot, and it sucks because I mean he like someone said it best, like he was the best of us. He never incited violence. He never tried to like call for violence of anybody. He and and to see someone like that get just killed the way he did, murdered, assassinated is and I saw I recently saw a comment in one of under the YouTube video that Theo Vaughn made, which is if you feel that sting, that pain, it's because that's God calling you. And I was thinking about this during the day. I was like, again, going back to, I'm a little more level headed today. I know I shed some tears in the last video, which I'm not ashamed. I don't care. Like people cry all the time, and it's fine. But um, you know, I did say something along the lines of how atheists view anyway the atheists that I've interacted with, how they view Christianity and God and how like their usually the go to line is how could God allow like such an evil thing like that to happen, right? Whether it be like starvation, world hunger, killing, all like all the bad stuff that happens in the world, and that's their justification for basically saying that God is either a not real or b evil, which is kind of can't really follow that line, but that's why a lot of them renounce the faith. That's why a lot of them want nothing to do with religion or God. They don't want anything to do with it because in their minds they've convinced themselves that no perfect God would ever make a world like this, to where there's so much suffering, so much pain, and it's very hard when people bring up that point, because I mean I found it very hard when my friend, like I said, mentioned it to me. I was like, how do I like how do you as a Christian or as someone that believes in God, how do you answer that? Like how do you respond to a question like that? Or like a comment, or like, genuinely, how do you respond to that? Um I know I should read my Bible more. I don't, and I'm sure the answer is there, but the way like I see it is, and it's pretty straightforward. It's that, and I know I said this last time, but um, I mean, it literally comes down to you can't admire the light, the sunshine, without the darkness, because you need to be able to see that contrast of light and dark. Because if we just had the sun all the time, you would never know what darkness is, and therefore, how would you know what you had, right? Kind of like how how would you know that you had it good at all if there was no contrast there for you to see that? Ultimately, I think that's what this life, and it could be, it could be completely wrong. I'm just speaking out of off the top of my head. I have no fact. These are just thoughts that run through my mind, but like ultimately, God gave us this life to work to, and He gave us that choice to either follow Him or not follow Him. Because I think, I mean, ultimately, this life is to show you the contrasts, and so that you can make that decision. I mean, for yourself. But ultimately, what I'm trying to get at is, I think all of it has a purpose. He wouldn't just, you know, um, like Charlie Kirk did not die in vain, and I've seen a lot of posts on social media, especially on like X, of people that are renouncing their old ways. I saw a post somewhere where someone was asking about going to church, about someone that said that they had had enough of the Democratic Party. They'd had enough of the lies. I saw another video of another guy that was a Christian, but he posted, and I think that one got a lot of traction, where he said he wasn't afraid to speak out anymore because he saw, it really moved him, and it moves me. That's kind of why I decided to make these live streams again, because I literally, I yeah, I work. I have a day job, obviously, but I do this at night, and it's late at night. I should probably go to bed, but like I said, it's really inspired me to to speak up more, to be a better person. And if anything, it's brought me closer to Jesus. That's for sure. And that's personally. And I know a lot of people are feeling that right now. So, and seeing like, and like I was saying, there was a guy on Twitter that it was really touching. He went by like, I think he was something atheist, but he was an atheist. But now he's reconsidering his beliefs because I think someone said it best. They said they don't know if they believe in God, but seeing the evil and being, I think that's it. Being able to see the evil in such, like, shining that light on evil and just seeing what evil isn't, what evil is, and then having that contrast there of, okay, I see what evil is, and you know it's real because you saw it. You can't deny it. You saw it. And now contrast that, well, then what is good? And that's where we have to come in. If you're a believer, if you're a Christian, you have to say, there's only one good, and that good is Jesus Christ. And that's it. Because a lot of people are starting to wake up. They're starting to see that the way they thought, the way they think, they thought they had the world figured out, but seeing things like that horrific assassination, that killing of him, has really woken a lot of people up to what's really going on here. Because I mean, you see, and that's God's hand right there. And as messed up as it might seem, you know, because it is a messed up thought. I was like, man, because we're all put on this earth for a purpose, and as messed up, you know, and it is a it's a very messed up thought to think that Charlie Kirk was put on this earth, you know, to ultimately die so that they could see the light. And I'm talking out of my, like, I'm just rambling right now, but those are the thoughts I have sometimes, and I'm like, man. But at the same time, he did change a lot of lives. It's not like he was just created for that, and it could be, you know, that moment, that moment right there, where he literally took a bullet because he loved God and he trusted Jesus. And like I said, we don't know. We can just speculate, but God's plan is perfect. And I believe that with all my heart. And this is another thought that I have sometimes of I had this conversation, and I think this one was the one that really I God's shown me his hand multiple times in my life. And this is just another this one but this one here is for the world to see. But in my own life I've seen it. um I have this, and this was my, I guess, my come to Jesus moment. Was I was having a conversation with my stepdad, who I didn't really get along with too much. He was always a very dogmatic in his beliefs, in his he I look up to him now, obviously, but you know, he's been a Christian all his life. He gave his life to Christ years ago, and he's never wavered under it. He's always been like that. God, am I gonna really cry again? But it's, like I said, he's a man of faith. I've never seen him buckle under it. I've never seen him doubt. But I remember I had a conversation with him where he said something along the lines of, like, I don't know what my purpose is on earth. Like, I believe in God and I trust him, but I don't know what my purpose is. And it was kind of like a moment of doubt. That's the first time I saw that doubt. The first time I've ever seen it. He's never been like that, like doubting. Or maybe he has, but that was the first time he showed me that doubt. And at the time I wasn't, again, very religious. I didn't really believe in it. I mean, I went to church, but I can't say I really felt it like that. But when he said that to me, and then and then I turned to him and I said that I said like the fact that you met my mom, you converted her from a Catholic, you know, to a Christian, and then subsequently I also gave my life to Christ because of you. You know, and I said, you don't know what your purpose is, but it's clear to me what your purpose is, or what it was. And that, that was for me. That was the moment where I was like, I'm gonna take it seriously. Started reading the Bible. I started like, you know, being more curious about it. Because up until then, I didn't, I was like, I don't care. But, you know, that was the moment where I was like, man, I see. Because think about it. If and it sucks to say it, but if you don't accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, there is that is the only way into the kingdom of heaven. And and if that means that, everyone that doesn't believe is sent to perish, then unfortunately that's what that is. And just because my dad, years ago, stepdad years ago, chose to believe, and it's not just that, he just chose to believe. He trust me, he had a hard life. The guy's story itself is just crazy. He had a very he had a very tough upbringing, he had a very tough life, but he chose to believe, and because of that, he saved my mom. Well, I know it wasn't my stepdad that saved my mom. It was obviously Jesus saved him. But you get to see kind of the way that God works in that way. And it, and then, tying it back to like the Charlie Kirk assassination, it's obvious to me that whether God planned it that way or not, he obviously, he did, because he's perfect. He I'm not gonna go into what God thinks because I don't know what He thinks. He's literally a God. We are humans. We're not on that wavelength. We don't know. We don't understand. But to think that because Charlie died, like, how many people are gonna be saved because of that? Because of that moment right there. And that ultimately is is I guess why I get like really it's emotional, man. It's this is heavy shit. This is not easy to like sift through these thoughts and really think about it because his death isn't in vain, and it won't be, because I mean it at this point. Whoever takes on whatever comes next, whoever feels, you can't feel his shoes, but this is gonna inspire a lot of, heck, it inspired me. It's inspired me to make these live streams. It's inspired a lot of other people to speak out, to speak up. It's emboldened people to to claim their faith again, and to not be scared. And it's gonna save a lot of souls. So there's always a silver lining with God. He knows what he's doing. But man, at 30, I was just like 31. A young guy, man. It sucks, but I think ultimately only good can come from this. Obviously, if there's a civil war, that would suck. But and another thing, right? This was another thing that I was thinking about. So this is supposed to be a call-in show, by the way. If anyone's watching this, but I kind right now I'm like deep in thought, so I can't really. I wanna. I'm just making sure. So I'm live on everything right now. It looks like I'm good, but I'm just rambling right now. So if you leave a comment, maybe next time I'll take your call. I have a Discord set up so we can I guess talk on there. But anyway, I had this thought of because I labeled this as politics, and we've just been talking. I've been just talking about God and stuff. But anyway, on the political aspect of it, um, I was I see a lot of posts. I see like um there was one of it was like a meme or like a cartoon that was drawn of like when the when the left or the Democrats because they're comparing it to like when George Floyd was assassinated, which isn't really fair, but they rioted and they looted, they burned down cities, and in contrast to that, for Charlie Kirk, there's been a lot of vigils. I think that's how you say it, vigils. A lot of people gathering peacefully and praying, and being together. I saw a really nice video of from, and this wasn't even in the U.S. This was overseas. In England, they were singing "Amazing Grace," which uh, I can't even imagine what that must have felt like, just singing that all together in unison like that. And it's beautiful to see that stuff. But there is the contrast, and you can see it right there between good and evil just by the way people have reacted to this. Between the Democrats and the Republicans, because again, this goes back to God, because Republicans on average tend to believe, I mean, are a lot more not by much, by the way, because I think I did see and again, I could literally look these numbers up, but I saw a post that I think the Republicans have dropped in in like church attendance, or not church attendance, but you know what I mean, like in terms of their faith. I think they like questioned them, and they came back saying that like they're like kind of like in limbo, they don't really believe, whereas like the Democrats completely don't, are not religious, don't believe in God at higher rates than Republicans tend to be. But that just shows you, the contrast of what you're supposed to do and what you're not supposed to do. And because the way I see it, and I don't know, this might be conspiracy theoristy, as that's not a word, but like, see, what I think is really happening is the Democrats are trying their best right now because they're not in power to literally start a war because they're like poking republic they're poking the other side pretty much. They're poking Trump. And they're poking everyone on this side. Like, come on. And this was beyond a poke, by the way. This I'm not saying that this was like a little the assassination. No, I'm not saying that that was a poke. But they are like actively trying to get Republicans to be who they think that Republicans are, which is totalitarian, which is violent, and um, like Nazis or whatever. Like I think they're trying. It's like in the Dark Knight when in the at the very end, it's like near the end of the movie when the Joker, obviously, if you've seen the movie, you know that at the end, he gets he has two boats, and on one boat you have that are leaving because they're evacuating the city. It doesn't matter, but There's two boats evacuating the city. On one boat, there are civilians that are just civilians, just regular people, and he's obviously the Joker is insane, so he wired bombs on both boats, and he gave the control of the bombs to people on both. Okay, so I'm butchering this, but ultimately he basically on one boat there's civilians, on the other boat there's convicts, criminals, um, people that are in jail, pretty much, and people that have raped, murdered, tortured, whatever, criminals, right? On one boat there's criminals, on the other boat there's just regular people. The Joker was like, okay, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna make you guys choose. So you have until like midnight to decide to blow each other up, pretty much. And if you don't do it by midnight, both the boats are gone. That was like what was on the line at the end, I think, because I'm just doing this off memory. So, but anyway, essentially that was the choice, right? Either you, either the convicts and the criminals kill the civilians, or the civilians choose to kill the criminals and convicts. And if you don't, you both die. Which was his plan, and throughout the whole thing, the whole plan was to prove a point, which was that your morals, because he's an insane person, because he thought that the morals, your rules, it was a line. Your morals, your rules, they're all dropped at the first sign of problems, at the first sign of like of why am I blanking on the word? At the first sign of like basically like trouble, problems, turmoil, like you drop all your morals and it's every man for themselves, and he wanted to prove that people were like him, insane, which is insane, right? Which is crazy, insane, um all of those words that depict the Joker. And he wanted to prove that people were like him, that they were nihilistic, that they were evil, that they were just as crazy as he was, because like he said, all the morals go out the window once shit hits the fan. Technically is what he was saying, what he was trying to prove to Batman and stuff like that. And ultimately what happens? The clock strikes and no one does anything. On the civilian side, they were gonna do it, but the guy that ultimately wanted to do it, didn't end up doing it, and then at that point, the Joker's like, I guess I got to do everything myself, and in that moment, that's when Batman, I think, said like, people aren't as crazy as you, they haven't lost hope, Now, where am I going with all this? I basically just told the whole scene there. Where I'm going with this is the Democrats are essentially the Joker. They're insane. They have no morals. They have no. And it's not all Democrats, obviously. I'm just generalizing, but for the most part, if you're on that side of thinking, you're probably an insane person to a certain degree at a certain level. Not all of you. I know there's a lot, and the crazy thing is there are people that claim to be followers of Christ or have a faith in some religion that are Democrats, and I acknowledge that and I understand that, and, and that's fine. But um, it's very hard to square those like your beliefs with that line of thinking. So essentially, what it is the Democrats are the Joker. They're trying to prove that like the Republicans are just as insane or just as bad as they are. But it doesn't work that way because when you have faith, when you have conviction, when you believe what you believe, and you believe it the way Charlie Kirk did, you're not gonna. That's not something that you can like. You can't take that away from people. That faith, that hope, it doesn't go away, and and ultimately, um, that's and see, I messed it up because that's not how the thought was. I can't remember. See, I feel like I should type things down in my phone because like I said, I'm just talking right now. I'm just but but you can see kind of like the line of thinking, right? Which is that Democrats are insane and they're trying to prove the point that we're all like that. We're all insane, but we're not. What differentiates us from them is ultimately is faith. It's believing that yes, that you can do it. That yes, you can get yourself out of bad situations. That God will help you along the way. That no matter what, your faith doesn't waver under stress and under things like that. But they're so dead set on their views on everything that they can't see that, and it sucks. It sucks because it's going to continue to divide this country, I think. And at this point, um, I I genuinely don't think you have a leg to stand on if you're a Democrat. I can't like how do you justify like vote like even voting for them, right? Like and this is where it's like starting to turn, right? Where but see this is also where it gets kind of tricky because for the longest time, it's been the Republicans on the end of things, meaning like I guess Democrats would say like, "Oh, how could you vote for Trump? How could you vote for someone like that? He's evil. He's blah blah blah. Whatever. You've heard it all. You know what they say. But to think that the shoe is gonna literally be on the other foot, it feels like because like how can you claim to be the party of love, of compassion when you're going around shooting your political what your political enemies like how do you square that in your mind if you're like in the Democratic Party? Like how do you justify that? Because this, don't forget they shot Trump. And I know and see this is also where it's like it's not every Democrat obviously. It's not, but that kind of that kind of the and you've heard the rhetoric, like all the Hitler stuff, all the calling people like people that are Republican Nazis, like all of this stuff, right? It feeds into them, right? And you saw it with, oh my god, I don't want to say his name, the shooter's name, I don't, but he was radicalized that way. And I think the same thing happened to that kid, the one that tried to shoot Trump. He was radicalized. They were, you know, they were radicalized into believing that these people were evil when they weren't. Especially on Charlie's side, like, you know, there was no evil in him. I don't think. Obviously, I'm not saying that he was perfect. I'm sure he had his flaws. We all do. We all have. We all come short. We all fall short. But he was about as good as it got, man. He was, and you can hear it by the testimony of all the people that were around him. You hear how great of a person he was, and to think that he was the one that got struck by the bullet. He was the one that died. It's terrible, and it sucks. And I don't know how, as someone on the Democratic side, on the left side, how you can continue justifying voting for that party. How you can justify continuing to invest to donate to people like that have called Trump every name in the book, that have called Charlie, that have literally like that are literally dancing on his grave. Like, that's sickening to watch that stuff. I can't even watch it because it fills your mind with so much rage and so much, and it does put hate in your heart, and that's why I would recommend that you don't watch those videos. Because, and another thing, right? Because it's hard, right? Because you see, and I saw articles being written about the fact that conservatives were targeting a lot of like university professors, teachers, lawyers, all the people that were celebrating Charlie Kirk's death, and that they were doxing them, telling them to make them famous, like blow up their accounts, get them fired, basically ruin their lives, right? Um, and my initial thought was, man, they did that to the Democrats did that to Republicans first, meaning like you know Republicans were the ones that were getting like doxxed, getting attacked online. They were getting like threats, all that stuff, right? People were canceling Republican, like for having an opinion, you know, and and um and it's crazy to see how it's flipped, right? Now it's the other way around. And my initial thought on all of it was, and it's and I'm flipping on it, because where's the freedom of speech there, right? Because as vile, and I know, as vile and disgusting as it is, seeing another human being laugh and joke and dance and do all these disgusting things um in the wake of Charlie's passing, and celebrating and doing all these horrible things, and I know it's bad, but it made me think of it did make me think of the scene in Inglorious Bastards where the guy uh that scene where he told he asked him, what are you gonna do after the war, once you get out of the war, to the German guy that gave up the you guys know him, the German guy that ratted on the positioning of the other soldiers in the movie. um he asked him like, "What are you gonna do once you get rid of once you when you get out of the army?" He was like, "I'm gonna go see my mom, blah blah blah, hug her." And then he's like, "What are you gonna do with the uniform?" And he said, "I'm gonna burn it," meaning the Nazi uniform that the soldier had. And then that's when he says, "Well, I don't like that." See, he said, "See, that's what we don't like that because that means that no one's gonna know that you were part of the Nazi regime. No one's gonna know that you were a German soldier. Like, and that's when he, it starts engraving the swastika on his forehead, pretty much. And the rationale was that's how you can pick them out, right? Like you can pick out a Nazi because he literally drew a swastika on his forehead. Well, you know, you see all these people basically kind of doing the same thing, right? Like they're outright showing you what evil is. They're literally and you can see it. Like you can see the evil right there before your eyes. And in no time and other that's what makes this all so crazy because the evil demons like you can literally see them on social media right now. When you open your app and you see them doing it. Like the demons are literally showing you their marks. And as bad as it is, I don't know. I don't know if I could advocate for because it's so hard. It's so hard. Because if you're a freedom of if you claim to be someone that's for freedom, you would say like basically it all goes because it goes back to even gun control, kind of like where people want to put restrictions on guns. But if you do that, then you start to lose your right to bear arms. You start to lose that privilege, that right. I might say not privilege, that right to bear arms, the right to have a weapon, the right to protect yourself. When you start putting restrictions on that, you start losing the essence of it. And and like I said, this is just a thought. I'm not advocating that we should not I don't know, that these people shouldn't go lose their jobs. They shouldn't do, because think about it, right? All right, think about this. Say, you dox one of these demons and that they end up losing their job, right? And whatever they worked for, whatever, right? They end up losing their job. Now, what's and maybe this is a flawed way of looking at it, but would that not radicalize that person even more? Is what I would say. Like like the resentment that you would get is I can't even imagine. Like, because they already hate us, right? They already hate God. They already hate everything that you stand for. They already hate probably the United States of America. They have some kind of self-loathing like this. It's demonic. That's what it is. But and then you go and literally ruin their life. They might snap. They might go on a shooting spree. Who knows? I'm not saying that's what's gonna happen, but it's just it's crazy to think about, man. Because I'm for freedom of speech, and at the same time, there's also the other thought of I think I saw somewhere where someone said someone was complaining that Democrats are getting targeted because they're expressing their joy of or they're not allowed to express their feelings about Charlie Kirk, blah 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 blah, and and um, and he was like, oh, but Republicans are so for the freedom of speech and blah blah blah. And then someone responded, well, you guys essentially started it first, and people were getting canceled left and right, like 5 to 6 years ago, or whenever that was, when people like especially Republicans were getting like deplatformed, they were getting canceled, they couldn't speak out, all that stuff when that stuff was going on. And so it's kind of like, well, since you're not really for free speech, then you kind of lost that privilege. And now we're gonna play this game of, well, I'm in power. You know, it sucks to suck, but you started it, right? And you did, and you kind of like deserve to feel like, you know, treat others the way you want to be treated. And I can also see that line of thinking. And but it's like, what would Jesus do, right? What would Jesus would say? Turn to him, I think, and give up your and I had a this one might get me. Who knows? See, this one relates to the shooter, and it's 1 in the morning almost. So I'm probably not going to get into this one because this one is a really really like out there thought, but I would just ask this question: do you think that the person that assassinated Charlie Kirk, that ripped a son away from his parents, a father away from his daughters, a husband away from his wife, and someone that people literally looked up to, do you think that person deserves forgiveness and deserves to see the kingdom of God? Because my honest thought is, um, and it's so because and it goes back, when Jesus was on the cross and there were two people on either side of him, and I forgot the name of the guy, but the one that repented, and he was, he was a bad person as well. Maybe not on this level, but he committed crimes. He was nailed on a cross. And he, on that cross, decided to give his life to Christ. And Jesus, essentially accepted him into the kingdom of heaven. And I know maybe right now is not the best time to have this because emotions are high. People are upset. They're probably like, "What do you mean that the shooter um should get to meet be in heaven, blah blah blah." But again, we can't speak for God. He ultimately is the one that delivers judgment. We can make assumptions. We can say like, um, one thing I'm for sure is I'm sure is Charlie is with God right now, and he's with Jesus. That's that I know. And like I said, but as far as the shooter goes, look, I don't think anyone deserves to go to hell. As bad as that might sound. That's why Jesus came and redeemed us. That's why God gave his only son. Because I don't know about you, but I'm not perfect. I've done things in my life that I I wouldn't let myself into the kingdom of heaven, if I'm being honest. But it's not up to me. And thank God it's not up to me. All I know is that as long as you know, as long as you believe in Jesus Christ, and I guess the most important part is to change your ways and renounce the things. And it's hard. I know it's hard. It's hard to say no to things. It's hard to I don't know. It's hard to like renounce a lot of the things that you used to do. It's not easy, but I have faith that one day I will walk with God. And and honestly, if anything, this whole situation that happened this week, everything with the assassination, everything with his death, if anything, it's really I've been praying a lot more. That's a good thing. I've been and it's crazy to think that it takes an event like this, right? Because it shouldn't. And that's what I mean when I say I'm not perfect, and none of us are. And we all fall short, right? And yes, maybe some of us don't go around shooting other people because of, or whatever. But think about it. How awesome would it be if even that man that decided to take a life like that, someone that right now is literally in the hands of Satan, that Satan has full control of that man right now. There's a demonic entity inside of him right now. There are demonic thoughts. Like how could you want someone to be tormented and tortured by like that? I hope that man finds Christ, because and maybe I'd feel different if his family were a bunch of nut jobs like him. But his family were God fearing people, and again, it goes to show we all fail. We all do. No one's perfect. Now, as far as the death penalty goes, if it's the law, it's the law. But I hope between now and then that that somehow God performs a miracle, and if it's not meant to be, then it's not meant to be. You know, I'm not gonna cry over it. I'm not gonna, you know, I it's hard to say I have any remorse for that person. You know, but I would encourage people, and it's crazy. I'm not. You know what? This is the United States of America. You have the freedom to say what you want to say, and if I'm out of line, check me on it. Say something in the comments. But we should pray for that man, that person that killed Charlie Kirk. Now I'm not saying go online and post pray for put his name on there. And I'm sorry it's just I'm trying to make light of it. It's just so ridiculous. And maybe I'm schizophrenic. I'm out of my mind, but The less souls go to Satan, I think, is the better. I think that's the best way of looking at it. If he can somehow, but he's in a pit, right? It's just be thankful to God. Just get on your knees and say thank you, God. I'm not in that position. It sucks, man. It just sucks. But like I said, Charlie's in a better place, in a way better place. He's literally in paradise right now, and that's really, it really helps to think about it that way, because he's not suffering anymore. You know, he's walking with Christ. He, like someone said, he ran his race. Like I said yesterday or 2 days ago, whenever I posted it, that that he he ran his race. He kept the faith. He did what he had to do, and and for him, I think, man, I've been going for an hour. I've just been, and again, like if at any point I said something that offended you, um, or where you thought I was like, man, that's crazy, let me know. Like I said, I'm open to reevaluating my thoughts, and I'm not gonna like start a trend where we're gonna like pray for the shooter. Obviously, not. But I would just say, if you are a person of faith, and just, you know, say a little one there. If not for the shooter, pray for the family, because the family were God fearing people, and I'm sure they tried their best. But sometimes when Satan gets a hold of someone, it's it's not impossible, because God, nothing is impossible to God. And but like I said, I think the less souls in hell, the better. To be honest, I don't. I'm not actively, you know, calling for people to go to hell. Like, and I know in moments of anger, when you see people, like I said, dancing on TikTok because Charlie Kirk died, or laughing about it, or making jokes, or doing all these disgusting things. Like it does it's easy, to get in those thoughts, and just start my blood boils. I know it does. It's I would just say, just stay off social media for the next couple weeks, because it's not good, man. But well, let's pray for these people, honestly, because they need it. They need it really bad, and I know Charlie's family needs it too, maybe more than anyone. But just pray for all these people. But yeah, I think I'm gonna end it there. Um, like I said, the point of this is to be like a call-in show, but like there's might be one or two people watching, but um, hopefully, eventually, like, I'll be able to like talk to people, have like conversations, talk about things. But for now, it's just me doing a monologue for like an hour. I sure can't talk about nothing. Well, that's not true. I think we touched some heavy topics there. Um, and they're not easy, they're not easy topics to talk about, but um, yeah, it's crazy. Let's all say a prayer for not for for Charlie Kirk's family, for his wife. I couldn't watch that video today. I know she posted they posted something about her giving some words, but it's not, and I don't know. I feel like that's, well, you know what? I'm gonna stop before I get in trouble, because she has the right to do whatever she wants. They have the right to do whatever they want. They I just thought it was a little soon, to be honest. And again, and I know it sounds like I'm literally like, and that's no hate, by the way. I'm not saying like that in a hateful way or anything. I'm just giving some thoughts there, but you know, like I said, let's pray for his family, especially for his kids. Man, for his kids, for his mother and his father, for all the people around him. Man, it's hard to think about, but slowly but surely we'll get out of this. But I think I wanted to take like these moments to especially talk about, Jesus and God, because I don't know, I felt this thing light up, and I know a lot of people have felt this as well. And um if you felt it, just, I would say now is the best time to get on your knees and start praying to God, and have that dialogue and that communication with him, and go to church. If you haven't gone to church in a while, do it. You know, I think it's I just pray that, I really don't want to see any violence from, I like, and I know there are people on the right that are fed up, and they should be fed up. Like I said, Charlie's not the first time. They shot Trump. They tried to shoot. They did shoot Trump. They shot Trump in the ear. They literally took his bit of his ear off. But maybe this is the part where people like will say, "Oh, well, another tolerant." You know, you're too tolerant, right? There is something to be said about that. There is, because, and I gotta go. It's 1:07 a.m. I could just literally keep talking for hours, from hours and hours. So I'll just end it with this. I would say, mainly, if you haven't, you know, if you don't know about God, if you don't know about Jesus, I would say pick up the Bible, start reading. Once you do that, hopefully you can give your life over to Christ, and because He's the only one that can save, and you'll live happily ever after, I guess. No, you won't. It only gets harder. It gets and it's not easy. Every day is a battle, every day. But who better to fight through that, with God, literally. So sorry about that, but yeah, like I said, that's what it's all about. I know that's what Charlie thought it was all about, and uh, I'm gonna keep. I'm going to. I'm gonna do my best to share that same sentiment with other people. Hopefully, more souls will be saved. Like I said, we don't want to see more people. I don't. I personally would like to see hell empty, but it was made for a reason, and I get that part. And the less souls in hell, the better. How about that? And but if it has to happen, it's gonna happen, because God doesn't play around like that with evil. So if he truly was evil, which I think he is, possessed probably, but I just don't think we should be the ones passing judgment on anything, being that we're not perfect beings. But that's just my thoughts. I hope you guys have a good night, and like I said, um, hopefully eventually I get people to talk to. But anyway, it's 1:10 in the morning. It's 1:09 a.m. on September 13th. I'll try to get on tomorrow night, but if not, then No, tomorrow's Saturday night. I think I might be busy, but I'll try to get on maybe Sunday or Monday. But anyway, hope you guys have a good night, and yeah, accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior if you haven't yet. So, good night.